GM, welcome back. Karn, what is going on? I heard you're here in New York City for Solana Solstice, permissionless NFT NYC. Man, I don't know what isn't happening in New York City this week, but really, really exciting times to be in crypto, really times to be in gaming, right? I mean, I
Mhm.
think in gaming in general right now,
Yeah.
seeing the timelines, everybody screaming that it's dead. Meanwhile, I am here talking to games, learning about how much success they're having, and I'm just like, what timelines are they on? Like, what are they smoking? What are they reading? What are they watching? Because it's like, Jesus, like, get out of there. Like, get out, get off crypto Twitter. Go touch some grass. So,
Yeah.
Karin, how are you, man? How's the vibes? How you like in New York City? How you feeling, man?
I'm feeling great. Thank you so much for having me on. Jorge is
Jorge,
Jorge.
George, man,
All
whatever
right,
you want to
George.
like call me, whatever's easier
Let's
for you.
go with Jorge. Let's go with Jorge. No, man, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on. Just having a blast here. I've been here for about 3 months in the US. I've been in New York for about 45 days, I want to say now. So, it's great. The city's blessed. It's been my dream city for the longest time. So being here in the midst of everything, and by the way, those are not the only three conferences. There's also one more. It's called Games for Change. That's going on today and tomorrow. So I have four conferences to attend to this week. It's insane, and that's the game. That's founder life,
Favorite pizza yet? Have you found your spot?
bro. My cousin sister, she took me to this place called Lindustry, and they've got a burrata pizza, which is pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah,
Coffee shops? Have you found like your little like coffee place yet?
that's a good question. I mean, so I've had a lot of coffee meetings at like different spots, like Gregory's Coffees, one Joe and the Juice, I believe, was one spot. I'm not a coffee guy. I'm not a tea guy. I just drink water, not even alcohol, not that much.
How how do you do it just to drink water and be in crypto and not like have any energy drinks and
Brother,
stuff like
I have no idea. I've been asked that question so many times, to be honest. But
that? What's your favorite sightseeing so far in New York City?
there's actually this spot in Jersey City called Exchange Place, and you can see like FIDA from there. That's, I think, view wise, I think that's the best view, and ironically, that's outside Manhattan,
Yeah.
where so
I-
it's.
if you head over to Hoboken and you go on the pier and you
Mhm.
just have like lunch over there and just look at the skyline from there, it's probably one of like my favorite things to do when I'm in the city, when I'm over
Yeah,
on that side of the city. So
got
yeah.
it.
Um,
I'll check it out. Hoboken. I've never been there, but
oh, dude, it's my favorite, like my favorite part of like that area of Jersey City and all that stuff. So,
wow.
um,
Okay.
but Karn, let's get into gaming. Let's get into why crypto gaming, blockchain gaming, Web3
Yeah.
gaming, whatever you want to call it, right?
Yeah.
Let's find out the rage effect of what is being built. 30
Absolutely.
seconds, tell me who you are and what rage effect is.
Sure. Hey guys, as you've met me already, I'm Kern, founder of Rage Effect, effectively a cross-play shooter game on PC and mobile. Uh, Also going to be on PlayStation and Xbox next year. Effectively, it's a shooter game. It's a PvP, so you can play against your friends. Very soon, you can play against AI agents as well in boss battles. And the objective is to have a cross-play game that you can play on mobile, browser, PC, at some point Nintendo, and of course console as well. So we've been building for about 4 years now. Have quite a few investors, partners, some big names in Web2 and Web3, and yeah, closing in on about 350,000 users at the moment. That's a bit over 30 seconds, but I'm not good at I'm not good at start stints, but yeah, I think that's my take on that.
350,000 users, bro. Do you understand what that is in gaming and Web3 gaming, at least? Because I mean, like, the timelines constantly are telling me that it's dead, that there's no life to gaming. And I just, man, this is why I get excited for these type of streams because games are having success, games are breaking through. And I think that crypto Twitter does a phenomenal job at calling FUD. Anything
Yeah,
that's negative, it will get 10x on views, impressions, and all that stuff. But anything that's positive, it'll get zero views, zero likes, no retweets. No one will even talk about it, right? Um, it's just the nature of it. And so I think that it's
social
so
media.
it's so important for us to be
Yeah.
able to have discussions like this, but also How do we keep breaking through? How do we keep going for the next mile? What does that roadmap look like? Where do
Yeah.
we think that like we are going to be able to onboard mass gamers, mass adoption? What does that look like?
Mm.
What does that even mean, right? Because like
Yeah.
so many people don't even know what that really like comprehend what that would look like. 350,000 users, that is already mass adoption to me. I'm just like,
Thank
holy
you.
crap, right? And
Thank you.
so tell us like what's been like the secret sauce right now for y'all to where you guys are today, right? You guys have been building for a couple years. You guys have been funded by pretty big names. You guys have all these great track records right now. But where are we today with Rage Effect? Where are we going to be in the next 3 months and 6 months? And how is this a pivotal year for what you're building?
Thank you so much for asking that question. Real quick, I want to talk about something you mentioned earlier on, which I think is important, right? Which is CT and social media in general. I don't just think it's CT. I think it's now it's across all social media. So, there's these new forms of getting engagement. They used to call it engagement baiting. Some people call it rage baiting. You see that all across proper Silicon Valley startups now, right? Like Chloe and everyone else. So we're just heading into this dynamic socially or digitally where in order to get engagement, you have to bait people and you have to, say negative things because that's what gets a reaction. Um, so that's something that I think we just need to take with a pinch of salt and just accept it. But which is why I'm super appreciative of streams like these where you can learn from people themselves what they're building, what they're doing, and frankly, I like these kind of things more than Twitter Spaces because you put a face to the name, and you can actually like have a proper conversation. So, yeah, in order to answer your question, um, what's been the secret sauce? So the secret sauce has, well, ironically been moving to Web2. So I'll give you like a history of how we started. So I started this company in 2020 July. I was in my third year of college. The pandemic hit. I was in India, and India had banned Chinese apps. So PUBG was the biggest mobile shooter game at the moment that was banned. So there was no shooter game on mobile in India. And I said, you know what? I'm going to create one with my brothers. So I did. And I was the marketing manager at the time. I got 35,000 downloads organically, did pretty well in 4 months. And then we ended up on national television, um, like newspapers, stuff like that. And let me just go on TND because this is crazy. I keep on getting. Yeah, there we go. Sorry
They
about
want
that.
the alpha. That's why, man. They're pinging you. They want the alpha.
Yeah, no, but I mean, so I am on TND, but I'm so surprised because I keep getting messages on iMessage. But anyway, so yeah, so that happened in 2020. About a year later, I graduated from college. I did a bachelor's in computer science. I'm Indian, so standard stuff. And I decided to take the company further. So in order to fund it, I had to apply to some hackathons. Thankfully, won those. So these were sponsored by Solana, Polygon, Filecoin, Ethereum, and that funded the company for about a year. But the cool thing is, I was only burning $150 a month. That was it. And when we didn't win the Solana one, sorry, that was Genopets, Star Atlas, and Steppen. They won the gaming thing. However, a lot of VCs reached out because they liked what they saw, and among which was Solana Ventures. So they came in on the 1st of April, fiscal year start of 2022. And since then, we've built the PC game, we built the mobile game, we've done everything else that we'll speak about shortly. And I remember one of the first conversations we had with Johnny Lee, who was the head of gaming at the time, was how low the burn rate was. He was very surprised at $150 a month. Now, granted, we didn't have a lot of users. It's not like we were spending a lot on servers either. But for him to see the content that we had, the amount of content that we had on the game, all the different avatars, assets, maps, everything that we had done across 2 years, um, I believe that's like a pretty big green flag for him, and that's something that's been a strength of mine, which is making sure that we're sustainable financially while also like just doing a lot. Anyways, that's how we started. And like I said, since 2022, we've built the PC game, the mobile game. We've onboarded many more advisors, investors, partners, both Web2, Web3, fairly big names, if I say so myself. But yeah. So I'm sorry, secret sauce. Yeah, 2022. That's when we did that, and then 23, if you remember, we had a pretty big bear market. So nothing was moving, and I said, you know what? How about we get into Web2? So I made the conscious decision to switch from PC to mobile. So we started developing a mobile game, switched to Web2 because that's where I knew we would get users. And I started just pitching to Web2 VCs, right? Web2 gaming VCs. And luckily, we got this was like the most difficult time in my life as a founder, right? Probably in my life in general, because it was not a good time for anything. Quick shout out to Mr. Labs as well. They were of a lot of help. Anthony Palmer at Miston was of a lot of help during this time. So spoke to a lot of Web2 VCs, angels, etc. And after months and months and months, and having conversations, talking about my vision and everything, they finally came on board because they liked it so much. And these are some pretty big names. This is Nazara, which is one of India's biggest gaming publishers, gaming companies in general. They're India's only publicly listed gaming company. We have executives from ex-execs from Epic Games, Remedy Entertainment, Fingersoft, Supercell, guys who won Game of the Year awards. So having these people on board, they could really help redesign what we were doing, sort of repackage it, make me understand how to make certain things work in the gaming industry. So that I believe was the secret sauce, and that is something that I don't think a lot of folks have in Web3, or used to have. Maybe now, since so many AAA studios are coming into Web3, so that's different. But at least back then, I don't think anyone had it. So that has been the secret sauce for me. Like learning from folks who've achieved everything in this industry,
What do you
and yeah,
What do you think, like, from those, like, I mean, you're mentioning pretty big names, like, knowing the space, knowing, like, how it is, like, what's been their feedback regarding, like, Web3, like, the technology, like, the stigma that we have, NFTs being a scam, crypto
yeah,
being a scam.
yeah.
I think that, like, you know, blockchain,
Mm.
Web3 gaming, crypto gaming, however you want to call it,
Mhm.
is all technology that's on the back end, right? That's
Yeah.
powering the game and making the experience better.
Mhm.
But these Web2 execs are finally understanding that and seeing that.
Mhm.
And it hasn't, we technically don't have a full case study just
Yeah.
yet of like what it's supposed to look like. There's some great games out there that are breaking through barriers, kind of like what you guys are. What's that communication right now that you guys are having with them about Web3 gaming? How this is gonna like change the essentially what we believe would be the future of gaming in general?
Bro, that's a great question. Honestly, that's a very good question. So you need to realize that right now, in June 2025, this conversation is much different than what it used to be 2 years ago. So 2 years ago, it was much more speculative, right? The bigger companies, this includes PlayStation, as maybe I shouldn't speak too much about it, um, but the bigger companies like Nazara, I think we can speak because now they're public with us. Um, they were very Web3 curious. As a matter of fact, I actually helped them a little bit with their Web3 conversations and like making sure, they're looking at things in the right way, connecting them to the right people. So they've always been curious, but when it comes to like Web2 execs, I wanna the breakdown would be like 25-75, like 25% for, 75% like is it needed, they weren't against it, they were just like, is it needed, so I was always sort of in some capacity vouching for it, and in other capacities because I had a bad stint in Web3 as well in 2022, right? Nothing moved. So I was also sort of fed up with it because I built this game with the idea of Web3, and I'm here now, and it's like, you know what I mean? It wasn't too much fun. So perhaps at sometimes I started with a 75%. But
Yeah.
so in terms of what they didn't like was, how it felt for the user. For the user, it could be something like, oh, the game studios just trying to make more money off of me, because that's what Web2 gaming studios do, right? Microtransactions and everything. Um, I think that was a big point of conversation. The other thing was just, is it needed? Because it's not true to ownership, you know? So it was along those lines, yeah.
Yeah, I think like those are just great like points there, right? Because is it needed, right? Is still like very much like the
Yeah.
question today as games are more developed.
Yeah.
like people are still not seeing why, right? But
Hmm.
then you see like an Off the Grid, a FIFA Rivals,
Yeah.
some of these games right now that are having a lot of success, and even on Solana, there's some great games having a lot of success right now. From the
Mhm.
Mix Mob, to the Aurori and everything that we're seeing. BR1 having a new game with Bonk and everything. Like there are breakthrough ways to have success. Success means completely different for every studio, right?
Mhm.
It doesn't always have to be that like, hey, this is like on Hollywood or it's on TV, right? I mean,
Mhm.
success means so much, and I think that like it's figuring out what actually part of all this will be able to say a la carte for a Web2 game developer to say, the marketplace makes sense. I just
Mhm.
want that aspect of. Oh, I love the reward of the loot box and being able to pay and a token that can be live
Yeah.
and natively in the game. Great. I love that idea. Let's figure that out.
Mhm.
It doesn't have to be all of it, right? Like Web3 doesn't have to be everything that powers the game.
Yeah.
Web3 can be elements of it. Just like, depends on what cloud server you're using and depends like all these mechanics within games that people are always like that they don't know, but again, it's technology, right? And it's also the first time games are using technology as a like so and so way to lure people in, right?
Mhm.
We're using the words NFT, we're using Web3, we're using Solana, we're using all
Yeah.
these words that it's a different language to the native gamer. And so
Yeah.
it's also fun to hear you say that like you got frustrated with the space, right? Because
Yeah.
it does get frustrating to know that we've been building and all this stuff and the people are just not like pouring in all over it, and
Yeah.
then you have to stop and say and take a time out, and it's like, why are they not pouring in? What's
Mhm.
happening? Is it an education level? Is it just
Yeah.
still the product is not there yet for them to fully understand? And I think like, hey man, look at cell phones, NFC, right?
Mhm.
Everybody like didn't know what the hell it is.
Yeah.
Now you go into a store, any store here, especially in New York City,
Yeah.
you have to say, do you take Samsung Pay or Apple Pay? And they'll be like, oh
Yep.
yeah, yeah. If
Exactly.
you take NFC, they'll be like, what's that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I think we're going through that kind of same thing of like the Web3, crypto, NFT, and all that stuff. And I think like it's just a matter of time. But
I'll
back,
tell you. I'll give you some good news. I don't want to drop any names, but the biggest names in gaming, I'm like think biggest, right? Um, they're entering Web3, and they're gonna have like tokens and NFTs, and they've patented NFTs for their studios and everything. So we might be closer than you think in a mass way.
there's no doubt we are at the brink right now,
Yeah.
and I'll say the brink because I say this a lot, and the viewers probably like hate me saying this, but I come from a finance industry. In
Okay.
2013, Bitcoin we used to call fake internet money,
Okay.
and then in 2017, every research development company at every bank was like, "What is Bitcoin? What is happening? What is this?"
Yeah.
It's 2025, and every single bank offers crypto. Every single
Yeah.
bank offers crypto, right?
Mhm.
Same
Mhm.
thing is happening in gaming, where game developers were trying to figure out what the hell this is, to
Mhm.
now everybody's like research and development,
Yeah.
and now you have Sony with a
Sony.
blockchain. You have all these players now coming in and hiring blockchain folks to
Yeah.
help them on education. So we are very much seeing
Yeah.
that same repetition that crypto had with banking, but now within gaming. And I think it's just a matter of time of getting games out there that are like, yes. And I think like exactly what you guys are doing. And it's really cool to hear like what your story is. Let
Thank
me
you.
ask you like $1 million question while we're on this topic.
Mhm.
As an entrepreneur, as somebody building in Web3,
Mhm.
working with Web3 execs, what's been one thing that you want to tell other entrepreneurs about building in Web3, keeping that same focus, the consistency and everything, the dedication to all of this? But what's been that like life lesson, entrepreneur lesson, founder lesson that you've either learned from somebody in the Web2 execs that they've told you, or
Mhm.
just learned it from being in the space of others that have been able to do it, to be
Um,
able to be consistent?
yeah, great question, Jorge. Um, so one thing that I've learned, and that's with wage effect, that's with like just helping others out on their projects, both Web2, Web3, as an entrepreneur. Um, if there's one thing I've learned, it's to not take things too seriously, and not take everything too seriously. If it works, great. If it doesn't, it's a learning lesson, and you can move forward. But don't take things too seriously. That's an issue that I had when I started off. Like, I was incredibly professional about everything. I am, but I just wanted to make sure everything was perfect. Everything was, to the point. There's nothing that was lost, and that really created the foundation for Rage Effect. So that's obviously part of why we're successful. Successful. I mean, till now, I guess. Um, but really, I think, I've been speaking about this quite recently because in all these conferences, and I was at Solana Accelerate, I think 2, 3 weeks ago. Um, the most things I was speaking about was the fact that, you want to have fun and you want to do what you really want to do. Otherwise, it's not going to work. Um, and for me, it's just been, like having fun, meeting people, and not taking things too seriously. I think that's important, especially in a space like Web3, because everything moves so fast, right? Maybe not right now, but in a bull market, right? Last year, 22, 21, um, things were moving so fast. There were new narratives coming out like every 2 weeks, every week, right? You had to switch your entire stance. If you were working towards this one particular identity or narrative, you had to switch that in like a week, in a few days, so it was just so fast paced and you just had to be on your toes all the time. So I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with, and they still struggle with. And I've had a lot of people on my team who've previously worked at some big Web3 projects in general, not even gaming, just DeFi and everything. And they used to tell me, and they still tell me, that how those things used to be a mess, like the teams there, because everything was so fast paced. Um, but yeah, so for me, I think one secret is that I don't take things too seriously, but at the same time, I have to make sure everything is running properly and things are being done properly. So my advice would be to just do what you like to do, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Love it. I love it. I mean, I think life is all about trials and tribulations, right? It's
Yeah.
all about ups and downs, and a lot of times you could fail, and some, probably the winning percentage of it is lower than people expect, especially from being an entrepreneur in Web3.
Yeah.
Uh, um, I have to ask the next $1 million question after
Yeah.
this. You talked about rage effect and this entrepreneurship. How many times have you rage quit your game?
Oh, that could be $1 billion question. Nah. Um, Actually, a few times because I was not happy with the development. So maybe that's like a cheat answer. But no, I've rage baited perhaps a handful of times, maybe 4 or 5. But like I said, I usually don't care that much, so I'm pretty chill with that. But COD, Call of Duty, Black Ops, nah, that's I've rage quitted a few times there. Yeah.
What's your favorite game growing up, or even now that you're playing outside of Rage Effect?
Um, Growing up, I want to say Modern Warfare 3, because that's what got me into AAA gaming. And I used to play it on my iMac on Boot Camp. If you guys know what Boot Camp is, it used to be this thing where you can play, or you can uh, basically load Windows onto a Mac on
Oh,
Intel Macs. And I used to play like Modern Warfare 3, Arkham City, all those games on there. So that's what got me to gaming. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. It's actually funny. Like boot camp is still like something like, well, there's other versions now, but that
Okay.
they're still popular for those that are on Mac computers to play.
Really? Oh
Yeah,
shit.
I actually, it's funny. I know he's watching because he watches. We have a guy who's in South Africa, and he
Uh-huh.
runs a Mac. And the other day we were going to play a game, and he was, loading his Windows on his Mac, and I was like, you still do that? And I was like,
Oh
he's like,
shit.
yeah. He's like, this is how I get to play these games, and I'm just like,
No way.
okay, man. I was like, I think you're gonna lose. Your ping's gonna be pretty bad.
I
And so
gotta check that out.
but man, it's also like one of those things to make you realize the audience. It's so important to understand the
Yeah.
accessibility to games. I think it's really cool to hear that you're built for different audiences, for different platforms. Crossplay is so important nowadays. We're seeing Nintendo 2, and we're seeing
Yeah.
now the Rogue Ally come out with the Xbox Series in October. Not that I've pre-ordered it, not that I know the dates, but I think like these are the things that you get really excited for, is like how much more accessible can gaming get, right?
Yeah.
And I think Netflix games, Samsung games, like all these on TVs now. You don't need anything. Cloud gaming is getting there. Like
Mhm.
it's definitely getting more accessible so that like stories like yours are like, hey, you had a dial-up phone? What
Yeah,
was that? Like,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
I had a flip phone before, like having a LCD screen phone,
Big
and
fact.
so like it's conversations like this that get really exciting and fun because
Mhm.
technology is at the forefront of gaming once
Yeah,
again, and
yeah.
it's always been.
Mhm.
It's just we don't see it and we don't know about it, and so I think like it's really cool to say. Rage Effect, where you guys are today, you mentioned crossplay, we mentioned the roadmap,
Mhm.
Web3 side of things.
Yeah.
What's the next implementation that you guys are looking to test, looking to break that barrier, right?
Mhm.
Is it like a marketplace? Is it the NFTs within the marketplace? Is it the tokens within the game? Is it starting to figure out the economy? I think like understanding the economy is something that's really hard to do pre like launch of a
Yeah,
game, a full game,
yeah.
because you don't know how many users will essentially be.
Mhm.
You might have 100 users and the economy might work well. You might have 1,000 users and the economy might work well.
Yeah.
What's that next kind of like roadmap of Web3 integration into the game?
Good question. So right now the game is off chain. And the idea behind bringing it on chain is, like you said earlier, not everything needs to be on chain. And that's something I've said since the start of this company, like back in 22, right? So the idea really is one thing that we're working on is our tokenomics and our economy design. So that's going to be inspired by Call of Duty and how they design their Web2 mechanics, but how do we integrate Web3 rewards with that? So that's something that's new that we're building on, and that's something that we're speaking with a lot of advisors in the space about. So that's more on the economy side. I know that's something that's very tricky to get right, and the ones that we have seen go right have been economies that have been more towards not gambling, but in some cases gambling and like direct correlation between users when it comes to token distribution. So that is an interesting concept. It's a proven concept, so that's something that we thought of for a while as well. Um, but yeah, so in terms of our economy, it's more towards rewarding people based on their skill, right? So one metric that we've looked at is KD ratio. So the higher KD ratio that you have uh, is an indicator of your skill in the game, and that is how we sort of redistribute rewards to you, and that's going to be capped to about 80% of the IAP pool. IAP are in-app purchases. So that's going to be a battle pass. That's going to be skins. That's going to be bundles that we provide in the game. At the same time, we are also building a marketplace, right? So if you look at mythical games, I was just speaking about this yesterday. Um, their sort of model, and from what I don't want to give numbers out like this. I don't think it's my place to do that, but a fairly big amount of their revenue comes from marketplace fees, and that's something that they tell the user later on in the onboarding process. It's not straight up. It's not like, hey, we're a Web3 game. That comes much later. So that's something that we've been doing for a while, and that's something that we've actually modeled out as well. So you can expect to see something similar for Age Effect when it comes to Web3. Um, but yeah, for the most part, it's just the only things that need to be Web3 will be Web3. That's something that I'm very particular about. And well, economy modeling, that's something that's ongoing. That's something that we've been working on for about a year now, actually more than a year. And then cosmetics, like we've made a lot of cosmetics. So trying to make a big marketplace of that. Yeah.
I absolutely love that comment about like how revenue is and like kind of what you guys are doing from a marketplace and sense of revenue.
Yeah.
Because as much as that concept sounds funny, it's
Mhm.
actually a pillar in Web2 gaming on how to make money, right? And in
Exactly.
Web3, we've tried to. Web3 always likes to break something that's not broken, right?
Yeah.
We know that. Like we love that. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
we
Yeah.
create a
That's facts, man.
we want to create an issue that doesn't exist and say it is an issue. Like
Yeah.
gamers need assets. They need ownership to these
Yeah.
assets. And it's like
They,
gamers
they,
don't care about the assets. Like
exactly.
who
Exactly.
cares, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's great to hear you say that. Like, yeah, a lot of them are copy same thing, like fundamentals of running a business at the end of the day. Like you need to produce revenue. How does revenue be produced in gaming?
Yeah.
Great. Let's take it to what we are here as well, gaming.
But that's so true. And the funniest thing ever, like I literally said that at Paris Blockchain Week, I think last year. Like I literally said the same thing, and I could hear an audible gasp in the room. They're like, "What did this guy just say? People don't care about ownership." I'm like, "Bro, like people don't care about like actually owning the items on chain. Like no one has ever in the history of gaming, like thought about, hey, what if I actually own this? Like that. So, and ultimately, if you talk from a tech perspective, um, I'm so sorry to break this out to you guys, but as a game developer, I can tell you that even if you own the asset, like technically you're not really owning it because it's still like a render, right? And it's an asset in one particular architecture on a server, which is like a AWS. Um, so yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's funny to say that, like, um, I think it's funny to say this kind of things, but I think it's more of in the sense that, like, think about this, like, we're trying to make this kind of concept that's normal already not
Mhm.
normal, and I'm
Yeah.
like, they're what for, like, why, right? And and I think, like, if the success is there, the formula is there, great. But when we talk about gaming and assets,
Hmm.
if gamers till this day have just kept spending money
Hmm.
year after year on the latest skins, on the
Hmm.
latest game, on the latest pack, the latest loot boxes, why are we trying to change that? Like, in the sense, right? Like, why
Hmm.
would we try to go and change something that's so already embedded in gamers that
Yeah.
it's natural for us? Because I'll tell you, my credit card's hooked up to Epic, my credit card's hooked up, and I already know, like, just
Yeah.
let me go have fun. Let me go get
Yeah.
into that. And if something new comes out, great. I want the latest game. I want the latest skins, right?
Mhm.
Do I care about the asset ownership? Cool. It's a cool to have. Is it a
Yeah.
need?
No.
Not really, right? I'm still gonna
Yeah.
go spend it.
Yeah.
Now, it's cool to, I think, as a gamer, I'll say this,
Hmm.
like, it would be really cool to have some sort of, like, you know, wall of fame type thing of, like, all the,
Yeah.
like, achievements I've had in my life, and
Yeah.
then so I come to this call and say, "Yo, bro, you're not talking to a rookie. You got this veteran. I've won these championships,
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
tournaments, all these things,"
Flex on
right?
the haters. Yeah.
That's what gamers are here about, right? To
Yep.
flex, to
Yeah.
to showcase who they are, talk
Facts.
shit, get that dopamine going. So,
Hmm.
I think, like, yeah, man, it just, it's really like something that just kind of like got missed in some in certain ways. Look, again, really great to hear some of the topics behind, like, how you're thinking of Rage Effect. Last thing I want to talk about is just the
Hmm.
community,
Yeah.
building communities in Web3, connecting with the Web2 communities. You've kind of been doing it all,
Hmm.
but what's been right now, what is the secret formula to working and building communities in Web3 and in Web2, coming from working with a lot of these execs as well in Web2? What's been that formula there that's really kind of, you guys are maybe even thinking even further how to keep building
Hmm.
on community?
That's a good question. I mean, in our case, the secret formula that we've used has been just having events and talking to the community, see what they like, what they don't like. And a lot of this has been something that actually started off in 2021 when when the company was just starting, when we were just getting users for the first time, Web2 users. So I remember posting on Reddit. I remember like having a Discord. I remember like bringing people from the game to our Discord and just talking to them like, what do you guys like about this? What do you not like about this? How do we differentiate from games like PUBG or Call of Duty? Where do you see this going yourself? And that sort of really shaped up this game. So in terms of the secret sauce, it's just like using your game slash product with the community that you're building, I think is going to do much more wonders for you than not, obviously. And some people do need to hear that, I think, because not a lot of people do that often. Because it's easy to, just like sit down in a room, have a whiteboard, and just sort of write things out yourself. But doing that with the community obviously is going to help a whole lot more. In terms of Web2, the interesting thing that's happened is that we've always had people from all over the globe, right? So everyone has differing opinions. So I'll tell you one thing. When it comes to shooters in the West as in like North America, right? or even Western Europe, people care more about stories and lore and narrative. If you go towards the East, if you go towards Russia, East Europe, India, Asia, right? People just care about shooting and having fun. They don't care about stories and stuff like that. So there's always going to be like a differing opinion, sort of mass opinion culturally, and that's been interesting to see. And that is where you need to determine who you're building for, right? Because that's the core thesis of the game, I want to say. Um, so these have been some interesting things that I've learned, across my journey as a founder of a gaming company that's making a shooter game, among a few other things. But yeah,
Well, Cam, I mean, like, it's been great to hear this. Let me ask you the last question that I usually always ask, and it's
sure.
why Solana?
Oh, it's a great question. If you asked me this question about a year ago, I could give you like a lot of technical answers, but frankly, I feel like my answer has changed now, because I think moving forward, all the biggest blockchains are going to be similar in tech, right? I just think they're gonna be similar in tech. I've been saying this for a while as well. For me, it's mostly culture now. It's mostly culture. It's mostly the community on Solana. It's mostly the people who are building on Solana. It's the builders. It's the devs. It's the team at Solana. And I finally met them in New York, and so for me, culture means everything when you're building on a blockchain. We've been given a lot of grant offers. I haven't accepted them from, I want to say, like maybe 12, 13 out of maybe 20 blockchains that I spoke to. And these are big offers, right? These are like $500,000, like 450, 500, like 300 types. So, and these are from blockchains that I don't see going anywhere in the next 3 to 4 years, probably even like 2 years, right? They're just there. So for me, it's more about building on a blockchain that has sustainability, that has a culture going, that has like a big ecosystem of developers, builders, users, right? Multiple things. Because if you want to expand onto more things, like let's say NFT collection, or for please forgive me for saying this, but it's just an example, a meme coin. Solana is the place to do it. So yeah.
I think I agree very much with. Look, I think like I love all the chains. I have no issue. I think competition's always healthy.
Yeah.
I think when you look at like building a game, to an extent, you have to figure out where that chain is in their development and their life.
Hmm.
And if your game is getting closer to be released or getting closer to looking for like users' feedback,
Hmm.
I think you want to be aligned with a chain that is also at
Yeah.
that break and having that kind of success. If
Mhm.
it's from institutional investment, if it is from being on front lines of legislation and trying to understand legislation, all
Yeah.
these kind of things that are very much factors to an emerging market that Web3 still is.
Hmm.
I think it's important to be aligning yourself with something that doesn't want to hold you back in the sense of building. Because again, you get one shot at this, and it's like, how do you make sure that one shot you have that partner that you want to like leap into? So really, really cool, Karn, to kind of hear that take as well. All right, man. What's the plug? Where am I gonna get like Rage Effect? Where should I go download it? Where should we make sure that I have my notifications on? How do I turn my notifications on for you? Because I want to see this pizza. I want to see the pictures you're posting. Give me the alpha.
Absolutely. So our Twitter is wage effect underscore. That's where you're going to get the biggest information. Also, we're expanding into more products. So we do have a new brand building PFP collection coming out. It's called Ascendance. That's something that has not been announced yet. This is the first time I'm talking about it publicly.
The alpha.
Um, yeah. Then there's a mini game called Peace that's coming out very soon. That's a PvAI fueling layer on top of Rage Effect, so you can play against AI agents inside Rage Effect who learn from you and dynamically adjust the difficulties. So that's another game that's going to come out. It's called Peace, so like the opposite of Rage Effect. Again, never spoke about this publicly, so I wanted to share this alpha with you guys. Very soon, we're going to be launching these things, and we've spoken with the biggest partners in the space to launch them. So yeah, I'm very excited. And yeah, so hit us up. It's Rage Effect underscore on Twitter. You're going to see a lot of things over there. You're going to see all the other products that are coming out over there. Feel free to hit me up on Twitter as well. It's Karn, Karn from Goldon, Goldon. That's the gaming company studio in Singapore, Goldon Studios.
Yeah, man. Hey, and you're in New York. I'm in New York.
Let's do
Maybe
it.
we do an in real life tournament. We see who's the real gamer here, and
Let's do it.
we'll easily, crown myself here. I'll show you what it's all about, show you how to game your
Yeah,
game. But
absolutely.
appreciate you for coming on. Enjoy New York. Enjoy the pizza. Enjoy the coffee. Enjoy
Thank you
the
so much.
chaos in New York, because
Love it.
I think you've been in Web3 long enough. You're probably a natural now in New York City, and it's all natural to hear the horns blaring, the
Oh,
people yelling at
sirens.
each other, people just rambling on down the train and like
Yep.
fighting and everything. And you're probably just like, hey man, I'm in Web3. This is like
I'm at home here. Yeah, this is my spot. Yeah.
all right, Karn, man. Take care. We're gonna have to run this back. Maybe we'll talk more at Breakpoint in Abu Dhabi.
Yeah.
Hope to see you there. Hope to give you the lowdown by then of what's happening also on Solana Gaming.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Absolutely.
All
Look,
right, Karn. Thank you for coming on. Take care, man.
thanks so much, guys. See you around.